And now,
introducing the one, the only.
Let me introduce to you
lively talk with successful people, barely filtered. This is the Jenna Ben Show.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to the Jenna Ben Show. I'm your host, Jenna Benamy, and with us today is number 10 UFC Lightweight with the record of 14-6, Performance of the Night and Fight of the Night awards, Al Iaquinta. All right, so Al, how we doing? How are your holidays?
Holidays were good. Holidays were really good, just small, you know. We usually I have this big family, aunts, uncles, cousins. We all get together and have a big feast, you know, but this year is a little different with the COVID. We kind of just kept it to my parents, my sister, her boyfriend, kept it really small. And we were able to Zoom. Thank God for technology. We Zoomed in the rest of my family. So we got to, you know, kind of see them and talk to them. And my cousin's got a newborn baby, so we were able to see her and just kind of catch up with everybody. It's been a weird time. So to be able to, even though we weren't able to get together, that's like my favorite holiday is Christmas Eve, because we all get together. Mm-hmm. My family's still mostly on Long Island, so we all get together and we have a good time. But this year was a little different. Thankfully, we were able to see everybody. But it was just, all in all, it was a good time.
I love your accent. I can, like, the East Coast. I don't know what it is because I'm from LA, but people always say that I have East Coast energy. So I really like connect with the accent.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I don't even hear it. So when you say that, it's a shock to me. I'm like just talking, you know.
Do I have an accent to you?
No, I think you have like a pretty neutral, like a good pronunciation, everything. Nothing. Yeah. No, everything sounds good to me.
Did you put on any pounds during the holidays?
I think I did. I definitely did. It's a struggle, you know. It's a struggle with Christmas Eve, then Christmas Day, then the leftovers the next day. It's just nonstop eating, drinking. Yeah, but now it's time to get back. New Year's is a good time to get back on the horse, back in the gym, and set some new goals and just start working again. It's good to have that little break. I think you need that at the end of the year, but then New Year's kind of kicks everybody back into gear. So it's perfect. Like recently I took up real estate a couple years ago, and I worked in gyms my whole life. So I never worked in sales, and I'm not the smartest when it comes to like numbers and stuff like that. But you know, my natural starting point as a person in real estate was not. Some people start and they're right off the bat, they're great. Me, I had a little bit more of a learning curve, but the hard work that I learned training in wrestling and then in MMA, I transferred that over to real estate. And I really believe that no one works as hard as me when it comes to that. So it gives me such an advantage where a lot of people have an advantage in, you know, their upbringing, if they were in sales, if their parents were salespeople or business people or something like that. My parents were both teachers and in phys ed and coaches and stuff. So I kind of grew up on that path, and getting into real estate, it all comes down to hard work, and you can know nothing about something. And if you're the hardest working person in that field, you're going to see results and you're going to succeed.
I believe that. Side note, is it true that MMA fighter workouts they burn like 4,000 calories?
Oh, I'm sure it's got to. I don't really know. I got to think that that's the most strenuous exercise. There's nothing that's going to push you. Nothing is going to push you to exert energy as much as somebody across the cage trying to take your head off. You know, you're not holding anything back. You're surviving, and you're letting it all go. So I'm going to say that's probably the most strenuous exercise you can put yourself through. Definitely. The only other thing that might be is big wave surfing. Big wave surfing. Those guys, if you're like, they're paddling for their life, trying to get if there's like a big wave coming and they got to get out past that wave. I started surfing a little bit, and what a crazy workout it is. So I think between the two of those are like the most. They're like, it's like life and death. You're in there in a cage fighting somebody. You know, you got to give it your all. And if you're out there paddling some big waves, those are two things that I think burn tremendous amount of calories.
And it's like you're stuck in there, so you can't really quit. So like you're in it for the long haul. And 1 pound is 3,500 calories. So like you could lose a pound a day just by doing those workouts.
Okay. All right.
I'm glad we connected. I love the post you put up of Merab. He's such a good guy. He's so genuine. And when he came on the show, he talked about how he moved to New York and, you know, obviously speaking a whole new language. He's from Georgia, the country, guys, and, you know, they speak a different language. And so he had to learn English and he had no friends and no support. And what I love about him is that he was just so honest and open about, you know, his journey. And then fast forward, I go through his page and I see that he has this network of guys, you included, that you guys are like family. And that warms my heart. So how did that friendship start? Just by him training with you?
Yeah, he came down to the gym and he couldn't really talk to him too much. He didn't really know. He was kind of there and he was always just working hard, always the hardest working guy, always in sick shape. But there was that little language barrier, and I didn't really know him too well. And then as he started learning English, and we started becoming closer and closer friends. He won a few fights. We were all training together, and his English got better. And you started to realize, wow, what a great person he is. He just is the nicest guy. Yeah. So opposite from when he's in the cage fighting. When he's in there. It's like that switch flips and he's just an animal. He's an absolute animal. But outside the cage, he really is just like living the dream. He came here with not much, and he just loves to fight. He loves to win. He loves to. I think he really enjoys being with the team, and he wants to impress his coaches, his teammates. He loves being here. He loves being with the team. He's always pulling out his phone and taking pictures of everything. So Merab's always taking good photos. I'm not good with I forget to do that kind of stuff. And when he does it, it's so meaningful and it's so cool. And now he's really succeeding in the UFC. He's on such a great win streak, and he's really coming into his own in that cage. And it's incredible to see. And it goes back to the other thing. It's just hard work. You know, he came here with not much and just hard work. He learned another language, became friends with everybody in the gym, just the nicest guy. And I can't say enough how happy I am for him that all the success that's coming his way and is going to continue to come, because he's one guy that deserves it. He deserves it tenfold. He's a team player, and he deserves it all.
Didn't you help him buy property too?
I did. I helped him. He just bought his first house in North Belmore, beautiful town on Long Island. It's got it's got an apartment in it. So he's going to renovate it himself. He's good with that kind of stuff. So he's going to renovate it himself, and he'll rent it out, and he'll basically live there. You know, it's a great investment. He'll live there. That apartment will pay most of his taxes and mortgage, and he's doing good. It's a beauty, and it's in a great town. It's close to the gym. Just a great house for him, and yeah, it's awesome.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that for both of you. Okay, so
it was the best person I could have. You know, I love working with my teammates and stuff, and working with Merab was just every house he went into. There was never anything that was like bad about a house. It was always how good this one was, and this one's even better, and this one's better. Nothing. He wasn't like, oh, that one's like I don't like that house. I don't like this. I don't like that. It was always positive. It's always positive energy with him, and that makes it. I'd go see 100 houses with him. I don't, it was just to be around that energy. You leave, even if you didn't find the house that you wanted to find. We would go and we'd be unsuccessful, but to him, we still saw great houses and we had a good time. So it was just working with a guy like that is such a pleasure.
Oh my God, I'm feeling it as you describe it. I'm like, I spent an hour with him on the show, and then, we've kept in touch a little bit here and there. And I can honestly say I've never heard him say anything negative, and he's just that guy. And it's not a front. It's just who he is as a person, and he appreciates everything, and he wants to make his people proud. He wants to make his friends and family and his country proud. And man, we need more people like Merab Dvalishvili, huh?
It's incredible. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. If everyone was more like Merab, I try to be more like him every day. I enjoy being around him, and I try to just absorb that energy that he gives off, because it's something that you always want. People want to be around a guy like that. Always. There's no one would ever, people always want to be around somebody like that. And I try to steal some of that energy from him and copy of whatever he says. He's always in a good mood. I don't know how he does it, but it's incredible.
Yeah. Okay, we got to jump into your story because there's so much about you I want to know. So you're 33 years old now, but take us back to when you were a kid growing up in Long Island.
I knew from a pretty young age that I wanted to do this. I think right after high school. In high school, I was really focused on wrestling. I found wrestling, and I liked wrestling because it was a sport where you could be on a bad team, but if you're the best wrestler, you'd still succeed. How hard you worked is the results you got out of it. If you had a bad goalie, if you had a bad defense, if your offense wasn't good, it wouldn't be fun to play, even if you were the best. But being on the wrestling team, it's like how much you work is how much you win. And it's that simple. So I really enjoyed that about wrestling. And I got into wrestling in middle school, high school. It was really like my focus. And then I found fighting. One of my friends was into the UFC stuff. He was like, "Oh, you gotta watch." He goes, "Drago's fighting Baroni," and I was like, "Who the hell are those guys?" And Pete Dragosell and Phil Baroni, two Long Island guys, were fighting each other, and that was kind of like that was my first exposure to the UFC, and to see two guys from Long Island doing it was cool. But I still was so focused on wrestling. And then I think it was like 2007, me and two of my buddies went to Atlantic City to watch UFC 53. And I walked into that arena, and the energy in the place was just insane. When somebody got knocked down, when there was a submission attempt, and then someone got out of the submission, the place just erupted. It was like the energy was crazy. I remember I didn't sleep like that night. I was just like wired. I was like, if this is what I feel like watching from the sidelines, I got to know what it feels like to be in there. And I was like, I'm doing that one day. It's not a question in my mind.
And how old were you at this point?
So I was probably like 16, 17, right? I was like 17 years old. I was a senior in high school. So I always knew that was what I wanted to do. I wrestled a year in college at Nassau Community College, but still I was always like, I started boxing a little bit before school just to get an extra workout in for wrestling. But it was still like, I knew that was what I was going to do. And one of my other friends started training. I became friends with my friend Marcel was training at a nearby gym. And he was like, "Yeah, when wrestling's over, come down and try it out. See what you think." And I went down there, and I had just got done with the wrestling season, my first college wrestling season. I was like, the best shape I'd ever been in. I was like, I'm gonna toss these guys around. I'm gonna kill it. I thought I was like, I thought I was the toughest guy in the world. And then we were just like playing around. I'd get leg kicked, and I was like, "Oh, that hurts. I'm gonna kick him back." And I kicked back, and I hurt my foot. So I was like. And then I'd take guys down. I'd take them down, and then I was getting choked up. I was in an arm bar. So I was like, very humbling. I was not as tough as I thought I was. And I realized that there really is a true art to this. And I had a great base with wrestling. So I just kind of dedicated myself to it the same way I dedicated myself to wrestling. I told you both my parents were educators. So they were more of the get a job with benefits. I was going to school to be a phys ed teacher. So to become switch to full-time fighting was a little, we bumped heads a little bit, but now they're my biggest fans. They're almost bigger MMA fans than I am. My mom is always watching Ariel Helwani. She's always looking up. Oh, did you hear this guy said this? That guy said that. I'm like, geez, Ma, you're on top of everything. She's funny, but yeah, it's been a cool journey. It's been a cool journey, and just going from the wrestling to MMA and everything now it's been fun. I wanted to be a phys ed teacher up until I really found fighting. And then once I found fighting, I was like in love with it, just 100 miles an hour straight ahead. My father's he's a football coach. His whole life he's been coaching football. So he pushes me. He's pushed me. Definitely, we work out together a lot. And the mindset, he understands the mindset of a fighter, what I'm going through when fights come. So I always have him to talk to, and have their support coming up for sure. In the beginning, it was a little rough, but once they saw that I was focused and that I had a goal in mind and I was shooting for that goal, they were behind me 100%. And I couldn't have had two better parents to be behind me, because they really understand. They understand athletics. They understand setting goals, and if I'm having a tough time, they're the best people. I go to talk to them, and I feel like whatever problem I have is just thrown out the window, and I got the world behind me. So it's awesome to have them behind me for sure.
I love that. You have such a great network.
I really do. I'm blessed. I'm blessed that I think that I was blessed with the parents I've been blessed with, and my family, my sisters behind me 100% always. And then I could have been born anywhere in the world. I was born in the United States. I could have been anywhere in the United States. I was born on Long Island, 15 minutes away from Ray Longo and Matt Serra. It's like, it couldn't have been any more of a blessing. And, as far as you say, like a network, those, between my parents, between Ray, Matt, it's just, it would be hard for me not to succeed with the people I have behind me. I would have to mess up to not make it. So I just kind of follow the rest. I follow their guidance, their recipe. I do what they tell me to do. I kind of keep my mouth shut and just believe in the system that they've put before them. It's succeeded, before, and it worked pretty well for me so far.
So you go from a perfect amateur record of 14-0 to Ring of Combat promotion, and then you get the call for Tough, the Ultimate Fighter reality TV show, which you kind of rocked, and I assume changed your life. So what was that like?
That was a crazy, crazy experience. That was like the best 13 weeks of my life and the worst 13 weeks of my life, all combined into one. Living with a bunch of fighters that you're going to fight one day. It's very kind of stressful, and you get on each other's nerves. But on the other hand, you are in a big mansion in Las Vegas. And I had a team. My team was like 8 guys, and then the best prospects at 155. So I had great training partners every single day. Like if you want to get good at fighting, that was the environment to do it. I also got blessed with great coaches. I had Urijah Faber. Urijah Faber was I was on Team Faber, and he not just he wouldn't just coach us in MMA. He really became kind of like a life coach to the whole team. He brought in guys that talked about goal setting, and he talked to us about more than just fighting. He talked about really life and how to succeed, how to set yourself up for financial success. He would tell us stories about how he invested in real estate, and I think that was kind of like my real first.
Wow.
Being exposed to that was kind of my first introduction. And he was a guy that I just, still, and at that time looked up to so much, the California kid. I was like, this guy's my coach. I get to train with this guy every day. It was like a dream. It was like not even real life. And he told us he bought a bunch of houses early, and he kind of rented them out to his teammates and people that were coming in to train and stuff like that. And I kind of took that and did it myself. Once I got enough money to buy a house, I bought my first house and I rented out rooms, kind of just the same way he did it. So and he invited me to go out to Sacramento and train with him. I stayed at one of his houses. I trained with his guys and kind of really saw how he did things. And he's just a great business mind. And he turned all of his MMA success into business success, which in the long run, you're only going to fight for so long. And if you can set yourself up the right way, it can take you pretty far. So I think that was being on Team Faber. I could have been on anyone's team, but I think for me, and I think he was the best coach I really could have had at that time. And it just worked out so good.
Wow. He sounds wonderful. I got to get him on the show and talk to him about that. He was
absolutely.
at one of the UFC media days I was at, but timing didn't work out, and those things are like chaos, as you know, everybody running around the room, lining up, trying to get their interviews in before time's up. So I missed the moment, but yeah, I'll reach out. So, okay. So your good friend, Mike Chiesa, he won the finale via rear naked choke, but you got your UFC contract in 2012. So now you describe this experience as being amazing and then horrible at the same time. And I totally understand it. You're stuck in this house with all these guys, you're getting on each other's nerves, but you're learning at the same time. And you're like, it's so high stakes, because everybody wants that contract. And I would imagine it kind of messes with your head a little bit, because, it's almost like you don't want to get too close to these guys because you got to fight them. Yep. But at the same time, like, I would imagine like you're building these friendships too, which is what happened with you and Mike Chiesa. Yep. And so I actually got a quote from him. I was like, listen, Mikey, I call him Mikey and everybody makes fun of him for it. But he says I can do it. So I'm like, okay. But I was like, look, I'm having your boy Al on the show. And, just what do you think? Like, what are your feelings about Al? And he said, Al and I built a lifelong friendship through a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I hadn't been exposed to fighters and coaches from major camps, so I recognized early on that his approach to training was one I should emulate. It led me to looking up to him throughout those 3 months. We had a lot of in-depth conversations, and he was there for me during the most trying times of my life. Al Iaquinta is a damn good man. Ask him if he still hangs around Sunda.
Oh, God. It's like a inside Brazilian joke. We had Cristiano Marcelo was on our team, and he would tell us some funny jokes from Brazil that sometimes they translated over to English and sometimes they made no sense at all, but he would still laugh at them. So he'd tell us a joke translated into English, and then he would just start hysterically laughing about it. And sometimes it made sense and sometimes it didn't. But but yeah, no, Mike, what a great guy. He's I'm looking forward to his fight coming up, and he's really on a hot streak in that 170 division. I think that was a good move for him. He cut a lot of weight. We used to call him Miserable Mike the week of the fight, because he would cut so much weight. He's such a big guy to get down to 155. It was almost like now getting a little older, I think diminishing gains to go down. He was kind of hurting him more than it was helping him. And now seeing him up at 170, he's comfortable, and I think he's focused more on becoming just a great fighter instead of, focusing on the weight. So I'm really looking forward to him next month, and then going forward from there. I think that he's got his mindset on that belt, and it's definitely attainable for him.
It's always uncomfortable for me when two guests that I've had on the show fight each other, because I develop this I get to know you guys so well during this hour and all the research I do. And then, we stay in touch. And so, he's fighting Neil Magny, who's been on the show several times. And I don't know if you caught this, but I had them together with Jeff Neal as well on my reunion show. So 3 ranked welterweights who inevitably will fight each other, and they knew that they were fighting each other when we recorded that show, but they couldn't announce it yet. So I straight up asked Mike, do you have your sights on anyone? And then Neil kind of leans up to the camera and he's like, yeah. And they played it off really well. But, of course, a little birdie after we recorded told me that they were fighting each other. And I'm like, oh, but,
that's funny. That's funny. But Mike and I, we were friends before, we're friends after. Certain personalities you just kind of get along with. I think, you have respect for anybody that does this. We're doing it. I'm doing it. He's doing it. We both have similar goals, similar. Obviously, there'll be clashing personalities between some fighters, but for the most part, even if you don't like somebody, you have respect for what they're trying to do. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Even when stuff like that happens, and on your show, it leads to a good story. That's pretty cool. And now they're gonna fight next month. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I gotta get gloves from him. One of these gloves, the second glove in on this side is from Neil Magny. So it would be good to have something from Mike in the studio. We talked about it. I just, getting him to the post office is a whole nother struggle.
Yeah, no, I know how that is.
So, okay. So I want to touch a little bit more on your real estate career. Now, you've been a real estate agent for 4 years now, and you specialize in what? Just houses? Is that your focus, or do you do condos too?
Yeah, condos, residential, really just residential houses on Long Island. It's really where I grew up. I grew up on the South Shore of Long Island, Nassau County. So I have a good network here of people, and I think that people kind of respect what I've been able to accomplish in the UFC, and you don't get that to where I got without hard work, and I think that people respect that. So they're willing to work with me, and they see that I work hard for them, and it's been good. I've been starting to really get the ball rolling on that. People are referring. I do a good job for one person. They refer me to somebody who refers me to somebody, and it's been pretty good. It was actually getting kind of too much during when I had those fight last year. Fighting and juggling the real estate was becoming pretty tedious. So I took a step back.
I was going to ask you, because there's so much babysitting that goes on in real estate, and it's such an emotional time for people, because it's one of the biggest decisions that they will ever make, right? It's extremely expensive to purchase a home. They're throwing their life savings. I mean, it's emotional, there's all kinds of things, and you got to be there to be their therapist and their financial advisor, and then actually show them the homes too. And if you're a buyer's agent, I mean, as you can tell, I have a little bit of a real estate background as well. I was a COO for a residential real estate company. And before that, I was the director of business development for a commercial real estate acquisitions company.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. So it was, I was licensed, but I was never a full-on agent, but I trained the sales team and I did all of that stuff. So I understand all that goes into it, and the ups and downs and the pressures. But yeah, I was going to ask, so at some point when you're in fight camp, you probably you have someone else kind of take over, or how does it go?
Yeah. So I have a pretty solid team. Just like I have a solid team with Team Serra Longo. I align myself with Home Smart Premier Living Realty out here on Long Island, and they're I think they're like the best around. So got a great broker, Rich Raspentini's like my coach on that end of things, and I've learned a lot from him, just like I learned a lot from Ray, Matt, Uriah, all these guys. So when I have a fight coming up, I do kind of give some things to the teammates on the real estate team, and they kind of help me out with that. But I'm still on top of everything. I like you said, it's a stressful time for home buyers, and you got to be kind of like 50%, 50% on the real estate side, and then 50% on the therapist side, because so many things happen. It's such a stressful time, and to really just to keep them calm and keep them from making any crazy decisions. You kind of, in the heat of things, the heat of negotiations, you really got to have a strong head on your shoulders. And I think that coming from an MMA background, there's nothing more stressful than being in the fight. So you prepare for the fight, and then the fight happens, and you do what you can to win. And it's kind of the same thing. I prepared myself. I surround myself with a good team on the real estate end, and I've worked hard. So when in the heat of negotiations, if someone wants to pull out of a deal on a last minute whim, or wants to do, whatever the case may be, to kind of coach them through that, I think I'm pretty good at. And when I have a fight coming up, I have a great team that kind of backs me up and has my back. So it was like anything else. I had times when it was tough for me, but I think I got through it and I worked through it, and now it's pretty smooth sailing. I pretty much got it down to a T where it works smooth.
Yeah. I know about those heat of the moment negotiations, because like you can have all the experience in the world, but when it comes time for you to get the property that you want, as maybe you can attest to this, it's a little like, I ended up putting an offer on a property that thank God I pulled out, because the comps in the neighborhood didn't justify my offer. But it's like I was like pot committed. I'm like, oh, I've already come this far. I want it. And it was a beautiful penthouse, and it was huge, and it was like, perfect area, but it ended up selling for 100,000 less. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm kind of glad I actually didn't go through with it. And my overhead right now would be insane. So I'm actually glad I don't have that burden, but I was in it.
It sounds like it all worked out good for you. But yeah, you get attached to a property, and then if the sellers, if they want too much for it, they want more than market value, it's kind of take it or leave it. You're either going to overpay for it, or you back out and you hope that they come to their senses and they lower the price when it doesn't sell for what they want. I actually just got I bought my third house a couple months ago, and it was the same situation. The owner, it's pretty good investment property for me now, but at the time the owner wanted like $150,000 more than I estimated it to be worth. And I got him down considerably over time because he just saw it wasn't selling. But then at the end of the day, we were about 30,000 over what I thought was reasonable. And I was happy I got him down that much, and I had really become attached to this property. I had visualized, I'm going to do this to the upstairs, rent it for that much, do this to the downstairs. Like, it has the garage that I can do this. And the numbers just weren't working out. So even though I was so attached to it, I had to pull out of the deal, and they ended up dropping the asking price to below where we had negotiated to. Nice. So I called the agent. I was like, thank God I didn't buy it for what we had agreed on. And I pulled out of it because she goes, Al, he just wants to get rid of it. Put in your offer, and he likes you. He thinks that this house, is for you, and just put in an offer and see what he says. So I put in an offer at, fair value for the both of us. And I think we got a fair deal, and he got what he wanted, or he didn't get what he wanted originally, but he got what was fair. And I got a fair deal on a house. And I think it's gonna, in the long run, it'll make me a lot of money, and it'll set me up for the future. I'll build some equity in it, and it's going to be a good thing. So I think it's just patience and knowledge, and not getting too attached. Like you said,
Yeah.
$100,000 more, even though you love it and you want it that bad. If you have all the money in the world, sure. But if
Right.
if
But for the
in the
rest of
long
us.
term, yeah, in the long term for an investment, you don't want to overpay. Not by that much for sure.
Right. Oh man, I could talk real estate with you all day long.
I know you got me started. I get going when you talk about real estate. That's it.
All right. So there was lots of movement around your lightweight title shot. And I'm sure you've been asked about this a million times, but I would love to hear you break it down from Al's perspective. How'd it go down?
The fight with Khabib.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you had another fight and it was kind of complicated. So how'd
Yeah,
it go?
that was like the craziest weekend ever. I weighed in and I was fighting Paul Felder, and then well, actually first we were at the media day, and at the media day I squared off with Felder. Everyone squared off. Holloway squared off with Khabib because he had been brought in as a replacement for Tony Ferguson. And then we get on the bus, and it was freaking World War III on the bus. We're sitting there. People start banging on the bus, and I was like, at first I was like, oh, there's fans. It's weird. There's fans. We were in the basement of the Barclays Center, and it's kind of tight down there. And you like go down, and the elevator takes you down to the basement, and then you go in. So I'm hearing banging, and I was like, fans. That was a little weird. And then it was aggressive. It was like boom, boom. I was like, maybe they're running. They might be running somebody over, like trying to get us to stop. Like stop the bus. You're running somebody over, right? And then something comes flying through the window, glass shattering. Girls are screaming. People are going, "What the hell's going on?" I'm in the back of the bus. I was like, "This is not good." I thought we were getting. I thought it was like terrorist something. I didn't know what the hell was going on. It's a weird time in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. And then I saw Connor ran around to the other side of the bus, and I was like, "Oh, this is what this is." I pulled out my phone. I started videotaping and everything, kind of. But yeah, what a Looney Tune he was back there during that time. So then we still had to cut weight and make weight the next day. So the bus got held up. We were all trying to get back to the hotel to weigh in. Mike had a cut on his head. Chiesa had a cut on his head. Ray Borg had stuff in his eye. Rose was all shooken up. But we ended up going, we got back to the hotel and weighed in the next morning. And I made weight. Felder made weight. Khabib made weight. But whatever happened to Max, he couldn't make the weight, and that was it. He was out. They pulled him from the fight, and it was like, oh man, this is crazy. Who's gonna get this fight? I called my manager, and he was like, yeah, I don't. At first they were thinking, I think Pettis was on the card, and I think Pettis. I don't know what happened. Maybe he asked for more money, and they didn't want to give it to him. So I was like between me and Felder, and I was ranked higher than him. I believe I was ranked higher than him at the time, or he wasn't even ranked. So I went down to the lobby, and I saw Sean Shelby. At the time, he was not happy with me. We had been kind of butting heads, and from across the lobby, I was just like, "Oh, Shelby, I'm the guy, bro. Come on." Yeah, and he put his head down. And he was like, "Oh." And sure enough, a half an hour later, I got the call to come down, and so I weighed in. I weighed in 0.2 over so it was when I weighed in, it wasn't a title fight. So it was one, I had to be under 156. For the title fight, you have to be 155. Yeah. So I weighed in for my fight, I made weight. Yeah. But once it became a title fight, I had been over by 0.2. So they called me and they're like, come down, bring your underwear with you. They wanted to weigh the underwear to see, because I wore the underwear, if it was 0.2. And I knew when they wanted to see that, I was like, wow, they really want me to be the guy to fill in. And I was like, this is the craziest thing ever. I had kind of thought, then I I kind of thought like it just like a weird vibe that I had. Like something was gonna happen even before the Connor thing with the bus. But once they told me to bring down the underwear, I kind of knew that I was going to be the guy. It was just whether it was going to be for the title or not. And it ended up technically not being for the title, but yeah, it was. And what a crazy experience just to be thrown into a main event headlining the Barclays Center in my neck of the woods, right in Brooklyn. Going five rounds was something that I wasn't really. I knew I was in shape. I knew that I could go 3 rounds very hard, but it was kind of uncharted territory for me. I think he wore me out in the first 2 rounds just by holding me down with the wrestling. I had a lot of weight on my arms up against the cage trying to get up. I didn't take too much damage in those first 2 rounds, but I definitely wore my arms out and was tired out. Training for Paul Felder, who's a striker, and then getting thrown in there against probably one of the best MMA wrestlers ever. Is a big switch up in really just like cardio training. You train for a different type of cardiovascular exertion, striking, and then wrestling, where you're kind of a lot of pushing, pulling. Your arms fill up with that lactic acid, and then to go to striking, which it turned into later in the fight, I think it was just like a little behind, and he's just, he guy's the best probably to ever do it. So, to be able to be in there and go 5 rounds, definitely a good, it's a good thing, but obviously you want to win, and it would have really been crazy and great if I would have won. But, every time he fights, I root for him. I want him to submit everybody. And so far he has. So out of all the guys he's fought after me, I've done the best. And it's a cool thing on the training that I really not training for a fight like that. I was training for a totally different fight. So when I see guys, after the first round, go back to the corner and they're like confused or Dustin was like, after the first round, I was like, oh, I can't get this guy off of me. It was almost like he was broke after the first round. That's what I take the most out of it. It was like, I went in there with nothing. I didn't train for that guy. And after the first round, it was the same situation, same scenario, but I just, my mentality was to just keep going. And he couldn't break me in those 5 rounds. So definitely, I knew how tough I was, but I think it proved to a lot of people, which was cool.
So no regrets on taking that title fight, because it's like you have to wait again. Like, do you think that if you had waited and then properly prepared for your opponent, you'd be in a different position?
I never really even thought about it or think about it. I think it's just, that's what I did. And at the time, that was the best opportunity. They paid me. I got paid like way more than what I would have got paid. And
nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was all right. But so it was a little bump in pay, and you don't never know. You never know if you're going to get that shot again. So you got to take it. I think right. At that, once you're in the UFC, you got to be ready to take a title shot at any time. If you're in the UFC, you're in there you're in your mind, you're the champion already. You just got to prove it to everybody. So I think that you really got to train for, and I always was, but I think it's a good lesson for something for me and for other fighters, is that once you get in the UFC, you got to be, every single fight, you got to be ready for it to be a title fight. Mm-hmm. And I kind of took that stance afterwards. And I think I kind of try to tell that to the guys in our gym that are coming up, that once you're in the UFC, it's like on the job training. Your next fight could be for a title. So you gotta believe that you're the champion, and you gotta look at the champion, whoever's the champion at the time, and really break that guy down and know how to beat him at any time.
Okay, I want to ask you about the controversy over the Jorge Masvidal win. And I'll preface it by saying this. I'm close with Andy Foster, the executive officer of CSAC, the California State Athletic Commission. And he invites me to sit in on these MMA official trainings, which happen once a month. And it's like 90 of the world's best officials, judges and refs coming on and reevaluating fights that were, controversial. Maybe there was some dispute in scoring. Looking at the Volkanovski win, people gave him a lot of shit, and he's in a great position, but I think a lot of people don't give him credit for having gotten there properly. And I'm curious about, how you feel about that situation.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. It's like a razor thin fight could be in someone else's hands, and that's a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah.
My fight with Masvidal, I think, could have gone either way. I think that the two judges had it my way. Were pretty impartial. I think that the one judge that had it his way, I think he had it 30-27 his way too, was Doug Crosby. And Doug Crosby has a long history of not being he's probably one of the worst refs, judges. I don't know how he's still licensed to judge, or who hires him, or how he's getting hired. But he's also had a long feud with our gym and our trainer.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's not right.
Yeah. And when I saw that he was going to be judging our fight, in the back of my head, I was like, oh, this guy messes this up. This is pretty messed up. But yeah, so I mean, the two judges that had it my way were pretty, 29-28. And then the one judge that is probably the most impartial and probably the least reputable or qualified. Like, I don't really know how that you hear some of the things that guy says, and you're like, who's hiring this guy to judge? You're putting other people's livelihoods in this guy's hands. So, I mean, that fight could have gone either way, but the fact that two judges had it, 29-28 my way. And look, he beat me up in the first round. So, he definitely, I think he beat me up where he knocked me down in the first round. And then I won the second. I think I won the second very closely. I mean, second could have been a toss up. And then the third round, I think I edged him just on aggression and moving forward, where he kind of took his foot off the gas. But I think that the scoring system could be tweaked a little bit, just in general, to I don't think you'll ever eliminate human error, but I don't think the 10-9 must system, I don't think that's really it's not the perfect scoring system for MMA. Do I know what the perfect scoring system is? I don't know. And I don't know if anybody does know, but it's definitely a different beast than boxing. So yeah, it's a tricky thing, and it's going to probably always, when you have somebody judging something, it's subjective, and one person can see the same fight another person sees and score it a totally different way, depending, if someone grew up wrestling and another person grew up boxing, the boxing guy is not going to know the intricacies of a wrestling match, and vice versa. So it's something that I think is always going to be there. It'll get better and better over time as everybody gets more educated in the sport. I think you saw some really bad decisions years back, in the beginning when guys had no idea. But there's also politics play a lot into it. There's a lot of people that get appointed to judging positions that aren't qualified to do it. So it's just it's a battle that will always be there, and hopefully it just gets better. But I think that more education, like you're going to these courses, and I went to a course that they had here on Long Island for the judges and the refs, and there's more education than ever. So it's a good thing. It's definitely going in the right direction.
And, Andy Foster stopped by my 100th episode reunion show, and he told the guys, if any of you want to sit in on one of these calls, I mean, they're 2 hours. We actually have one coming up, I think, in a couple of weeks. But if you're interested, let me know. I'll send you the link.
I'm down. I'm always down to learn a thing or two, and I'm sure I will. So yeah, I'd be cool.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. So looking at your record, 14-6, 7 of your wins are by knockout, despite your wrestling background, which I think is amazing. So what does this say about you as a fighter?
Yeah, I just kind of fell in love with stand-up arts. I really like more the kickboxing and boxing. I think that I have a pretty good natural ability to land some power. And with Ray, I always had that, kind of natural ability and natural power, but Ray really honed me and molded, kind of fine-tuned some things. And I'd get guys hurt, but then I wouldn't finish them. I'd kind of I wouldn't be patient. I think my patience is what really gets it done. I get a guy hurt and I just kind of stay on him, but I don't crowd him to where he can grab me and kind of recover. I keep him right at that distance to where I can land that finishing shot. So yeah, I think it's a natural ability, a natural hard right hand that I got, and then fine tuning it with accuracy and then patience through my training.
I'm noticing a trend with you. You're so committed to being great and being the best that, you are okay with the process being a process. You're not one to seek instant gratification and then get disappointed if you don't get the results instantly. You're like, you're a student of many things in life.
Yeah, thank you. I think and I think that's something that I've had to work on in general. I was always the person who would want it right away, want the instant gratification, but in life that's pretty difficult. So I've kind of trained myself to take a step back, breathe, and figure it out figure out however I have to. I've been doing that with the real estate. I've been just kind of jumping into things, and it gets very, very stressful with the investment properties and stuff like that. And my mom is like, my mother, I go to her with all these, I'll vent to her. I got this. The mortgage is going to be this much. I don't know if I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to pull this thing off. And she'd be like, you got to just take a step back. You can't just do it right away. You got to go step by step. Get one rented out, then renovate the other one, then get that rented out. You're trying to do it all at once, and it's either sink or swim. But you can kind of just do it slowly and get it done. And that's what I've been trying to do that. And it's a lot less stressful that way. It's a little more fine tuned, like you said. Just that's it.
Well, because the results are slower, because you and I have this in common. We can look at this whole thing in front of us and say, how great would it be if I could just boom, 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 knock it all out. And then I'd be collecting income, from all of them, instead of having to pay a mortgage and have a property sit because I can't get to the, repairs or whatever. So I understand you, but it's good to see that you're able to also control that inner child's impulse where it's like, oh, I want it now,
Yeah. That's a battle. It's definitely a battle for sure.
Okay. So conversely, you've never been knocked out.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just, it's a testament to my training, a testament to my awareness in there. I think that I've been pretty blessed. I found the sports science lab in Staten Island, which is quite a hike from Long Island. You get it, with no traffic is 45 minutes, but that never happens. So you're looking at like an hour to an hour and a half. Sometimes it'll take you forever. The Belt Parkway is just miserable to drive on. But I found Dr. Piazza and the Sports Science Lab, which is they physical therapy, strength and conditioning, and everything like that. But what really sets them, I mean, everything they have is great. What sets them apart is that they do brain training with their athletes, and it's a lot of hand-eye coordination and depth perception, things like that. I think that your eye, it's a muscle that you can train just like anything else. And I was going there leading up to every fight. I'd spend a couple days a week doing these kind of exercises and getting it at the highest level. It's a split second, not even, it's a millisecond between you seeing a punch and just kind of bracing for it to getting hit with something and getting, knocked out and cold. And I think that a lot of it has to do with just awareness and seeing something and just having that millisecond to react. So the exercises that we were doing at the Sports Science Lab really trained my eyes. And I think that, I've been dropped a few times in my last couple of fights, but I think that the difference between me really getting knocked out and seeing it a split second before bracing for it, recovering faster, I think that a lot of it came from the brain training and the hand-eye coordination stuff and all the visual training. So I think, obviously being in good shape helps you recover faster. Being aware as a fighter helps. It's everything. But then that little extra boost, I feel like that's something that's going to be more popular as time goes on. As the level of athlete gets higher and higher. Back in the day, I guess baseball players, they thought that strength and conditioning slowed you down and that it made it harder for you to hit the ball or whatever it was. But now everybody's doing strength and conditioning. Every baseball player, they see the benefits of it. And I think that this might be kind of like the same thing where it's kind of like you look at it from the outside and it's kind of like you're playing. It looks like you're just like playing a whack-a-mole and you're just like hitting things. And
sounds fun.
Video games. It is fun, but it's very frustrating. You leave there and your head is more tired than your body. But you definitely see the results, and you see yourself improving your scores. They have scores for these exercises and stuff like that. So you see yourself getting better. And my dad jokes around. He would do it a little. He was doing it a little bit with me, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I drive down the street and I feel like I see cars coming from every different way. They can't get me. I'm doing the dyno vision." So
they can't get me.
Yeah, so I think it definitely has benefits, and I think that as athletes get better and better, and there's smaller gaps between the guys at the top, that might be something that a lot more guys look into, and something that could set you apart from the rest of the pack.
Now, what about psychologically? Are you doing anything to train your mind and prepare yourself? And a lot of fighters talk about, sports psychologists or whatever the title is. It's kind of the idea. And, there's a lot of visualization, preparing yourself for all situations, not just, in the cage, but leading up to the fight. And then after the fight with all of the pressures that continue to exist via social media and media in general, family, friends.
As far as like a sports psychologist, not so much. I feel like I have such a good network around me that everybody is my sports psychologist. Like Ray Longo has been in the heat of battle with the best of the best. And in any situation, you hear him in the corner. He knows what to say at the right time to motivate his athlete and get them to do what they need to. So I feel like the people around me, Dr. Piazza at the Sports Science Lab, he's become a mentor to me, and I come to him with any kind of issues that I have, and he's always got an answer. I have my parents, I have so many people, teammates, everybody, has been there. And I mean, it's probably something that I could add is like a real sports psychologist, but it's there's only so much time in a day. And I feel like that, maybe that might not be the most important, but it is important. I do feel like I have a pretty strong mentality when it comes to stuff like that. I know there's a lot of people that really freak out before fights and get nervous and stuff like that. And I'm thankfully not one of them. I think I really enjoy it. And the more people in the arena, the better I perform. I think I thrive under the lights and in front of people. The more people I try to like impress everybody that's there and that's watching in the crowd. So the higher the stakes, I think I rise to the occasion. So yeah, I think it's all about finding a balance with fighters. Some guys really need it, and they're kind of like, they need it or they're not going to perform. I think that for me, there's other things that I need to work on before that. If I can't, if I perfected everything else and that was the problem, I think that would be. But I think my problems are other things before that. I think so.
Yeah.
That's probably,
Okay.
yeah.
I think you're the first person to really break it down like that. You have a solid network. We've kind of seen that throughout the show. So I understand your position. In a past life, I was working on a PhD in psychology.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a fan of therapy. I feel like everybody could use maybe not formal therapy, but someone to kind of just talk through things with, because we all have stuff, right? And then it doesn't go away. It just becomes bigger stuff. And then it interferes with our relationships if we let it linger long enough. So yeah, it's great to see such a strong person. And I don't mean macho strong, but just you've got it all. You've got the support system, you've got the work ethic, you've got positive attitude. And I don't know, to me, you're winning, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
What's the biggest misconception about fighters? I'll tell you some that I think as a non-fighter coming into the sport. Super tough, macho, maybe like not super nice, no personality. These are things that I've just like heard and kind of walked into the sport, being like afraid of fighters. And then I interview you guys and I go to these media days and you're like some of the biggest sweethearts I've ever met and just super loyal and fun loving, but like dedicated, hardworking. I don't know. It's just, that's been a big misconception on my end.
Definitely. I think that that's a big misconception, but I also think that fighters, are probably more humble and open and fun because we've been humbled. So a lot of people in the world, I think that they're going through life thinking they haven't really gotten their ass kicked. So
Right.
I think it's pretty important for some people to get their ass kicked once in a while. And I think that like you really see where you stack up and you see that you're not, you always have something to work at, and no matter who you're going against, you can learn something from somebody. So it just puts it all. Ray Longo talks about it all the time. Is like you see somebody in the cage fighting, and they can't hide anything. Like that's who they are. If they're they're going to cheap shot somebody, that's who they are in life. Like if they're somebody that's gonna put their head down and they're getting their ass kicked and they survive and then they come back, like that's who that person is. If they look for the easy way out, they tap quick, that you can't hide who you are in there. It brings everything to the surface. And I think that is just like the perfect way to just, if a fighter is you see somebody for who they are, right? That's it. So, no matter what the perception of fighters are in general, is like when you see them fight, that's who they really are,
I love that. I'm actually going to start kind of seeing if I agree with that observation now, just
Yeah,
having
yeah.
gotten to know some of these guys. That's great. Okay, what's the fight you're most proud of?
The fight that I'm actually the most proud of is I fought in the Ring of Combat. I fought Gabriel Miglioli, and he was from Brazil. We didn't know much about him. Um, I went in there and I was like 2 or 3-0 at the time, and we absolutely went to war. It was the toughest fight. Up until that point, I hadn't really been in a war like that. So I had to dig deep in that fight, and I ended up getting a split decision win. Um, and then after the fact, his record was like 2-0 or something like that. He really couldn't find anything about him. And then after I fought him, like a year later, I started seeing videos of him fighting before we had fought, and he fought Rafael dos Anjos like
Mm,
a year before he fought me. So I was like pretty green at that point. I was coming up, and then a guy that we didn't know much about came in. He was very seasoned. He was very tough. Uh, I didn't realize at the time how big of a win it was, and then it was after the fact we started seeing videos and
yeah.
learning about his pedigree and how good he was at the time. Um, it definitely gave me a lot of confidence going forward. So I think that's probably the fight I'm the proudest of, and that was like a big moment in my fighting career, winning that fight, and it gave me the kind of momentum and the confidence to push forward from there.
Wow. It's funny. I always expect fighters to talk about their time in the UFC and like maybe mention the biggest name, that's currently fighting. And it's rarely the case. Everybody's got their reasons,
Yeah,
and it usually comes from like earlier on when it was so new and you were kind of just like really forming who you are as a fighter.
definitely. I think that for me, that's what it was, and that's why that fight really, when you asked me the question, I was thinking about all the UFC fights, and the wins are great, but I think that one really like molded me as a person, and the ones in the UFC do too. But it's in those beginning stages. I think it means that much more when you can, those are like the make or break fights. Those, who knows? I would have lost that fight. I may never have made it to the UFC. So
Right.
that I think I proved a lot to myself. Like once I got to the UFC, I knew I was tough. I knew that, I was pretty good and whatnot. But that was kind of like, you don't really you don't know how good you are um, until you're in there with a guy like that. And I think I proved a lot to myself in that fight.
That's great. I'm glad you had that moment. I would love to exit the show with some words of inspiration from you though.
Really just getting started and getting the ball rolling, however it is, like energy. My father always tells me energy begets energy. You start and you keep going, and it snowball effect. So whatever is going on right now, it's a weird time in the world, and it's pretty easy. And I was getting caught in the same kind of thing where I was like, in New York, it's cold. It's it's not fun to get up early. It's dark. It's not fun to get up early and get going. But I just set my alarm, and I was getting in the habit of like looking at my phone immediately in the morning.
Yeah.
But I wrote down a few things that I wanted to change about my routine, and I set a goal for the next 4 weeks of stuff that I want to accomplish and things that I want to do every single day. And I wrote them down. And I think writing it down is just as important as anything. So I guess that's just, it's kind of like, who am I to kind of tell anybody anything on, you know what I mean? Like, but that's something that I've been doing. So if you're struggling with anything, the COVID is stuck inside a lot. There's not a lot of, it's just like a different world. So probably just writing down goals is something that I've always done. And more recently setting it for that 4 week period where after I think the 4 weeks, it becomes a habit. And all you got to do is you can do anything for a month. You do it for 1 month, it'll change your life. And I think that's something I'm going by. So if I could pass on anything, join me in that battle. We'll get it done together, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, to back that up, back in my research days, there's a study that showed that the most successful people are the people who write down their goals and also have someone holding them accountable, like a mentor or a coach, or even just, a friend, and maybe you do the same for them. Second most successful are the people who just write them down and hold themselves accountable. And then the third group are the people who, didn't write anything down and then kind of, came in third. So I agree with you. There's something about writing it down and then having it actually be concrete and clear as to what you're working towards, because there's a lot going on up here, but if we can actually create a plan. And the other thing I want to support is energy, and not just energy in terms of momentum, but energy in terms of like the vibes we put out, how we treat people. And some people call it karma. I think it's so important. And, I think my happiest days are the days where I make an effort to be extra kind to others that I don't know, like people at the gas station or the grocery store or whatever it is. And sometimes that's just a smile or asking how their day is. And, and then you see the positive reaction on their end, and then that gives you kind of a boost. And it's just like a wave of positivity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. There's definitely needs to be more positivity. And, we all fall victim to having a bad day, but to, portray that to put that onto somebody else who they might be having a bad day too, you make their day worse. So
right.
I'm all about it. Good energy. You see somebody that you don't know in the supermarket. It's a battle like anything else, but just being conscious of it and working towards it. I think that it goes a long way and make the planet a better place. If we were all a little bit more like Merab, the world would be a better place. That's for sure.
Go Merab. Oh, I love it. Actually, I'm going to see him in Vegas either end of next month or beginning of the following. I know he's going to be out there, and I go out there every couple of months. So
awesome. Yeah.
We'll send you a selfie.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be jealous.
Al, give us your Instagram handle so people know how to find you.
At Al Iaquinta.
Okay.
That's my Instagram. That's my
Easy peasy.
Twitter. Everything. Yeah.
Very good. And then, we'll tag you as well. Guys, you can find me at The Jenna Ben Show on Instagram and on YouTube. Al will be on YouTube as well after this show airs on Dash Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in week after week. You guys keep me going. I'm really excited for all the good that's going to come in 2021. Heard something about aliens. I don't know, but let's go.